Dr. Pamela Harrison knows only too well the meaning of palliative care. After assisting terminally ill patients in her spare time, she was the driving force behind establishing palliative care services in the Hunter 20 years ago.
It's just the example, really, of the patients and their families that keep you going. You really have to respect the efforts.
The history of the region's services is highlighted in a new booklet launched this morning to coincide with National Palliative Care Week. It's during this time that members of the community are being asked to remember volunteers and those who have put their lives on hold to care for loved ones.
And it's nice being part of the team and having input to families and the patients.
And it goes far beyond just physical care, volunteers also providing emotional support.
Often they're psychospiritual issues, the issues about why has it happened to me, I'm a burden on my family.
Colleen West, NBN News. For 4-year-old Khan Borton, relying on sound and touch has become a way of life. But for his mother Gemma, it's meant going back to school to learn a new form of communication.
It's a whole nother world really when you first start into it, but this is Khan's world. This is what he will live with for the rest of his life, and I need to be able to give him that. I needed to learn to read and write so I could teach him how.
Gemma has developed educational tools for her young son, including books and toys that she's brought to life with the help of Braille. She's one of a handful of parents in the Hunter to take a proactive approach to their child's early education, learning the form of communication their young ones will be forced to rely on later in life.
Otherwise he wouldn't get any exposure to writing at the moment. And I also want to be able to help him learn through school. So I need to be able to read and write it.
Children have to be immersed in Braille, so just as sighted children would be seeing print everywhere, blind children have to be exposed to Braille everywhere.
While learning Braille is proving to be an extremely tough task for these parents, they're not alone. The Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children is providing them with ongoing support. Colleen West, NBN News.
Community leaders on the Tilligary Peninsula had the ear of State Opposition Leader John Brogden today. Like many people in small communities, they're upset over a lack of police in the area.
The bottom line here is this community's had enough. And council supporting our community here, and they're off their backsides, they're onto the politicians, and we want some action here. We haven't been getting any action here.
Because we're just having no luck with our local member, and we're just not waiting no more. Times are desperate, and it's time now for action, no more excuses.
This system of what we call local area commands that the Labor Party has put in place has police centralised in one big town and the outlying communities missing out all the time. So unfortunately, it's not just a problem here in Port Stephens.
On some nights, just one patrol car covers Raymond Terrace, Tea Gardens, Nelson Bay and the Tilligary Peninsula.
The fact that we only have a handful of police available at night coming out of Maitland to police Port Stephens is no longer good enough. So I'm going to become a champion to battle for Port Stephens getting more police.
The Police Association has given local commanders a month to make improvements. Paul Lobb, NBN News. Dr. Bill Bowmore estimates he's donated more than $20 million in artworks to galleries throughout Australia, and Newcastle has been no exception. Over the past 30 years, the collector has given the gallery works by Brett Whiteley, William Dobell and Sidney Nolan. Now it's a gift of late 18th century and early 19th century bronze sculptures by legendary European artists Rodin, Greco and Epstein. It's one of the most varied collections in Australia.
Other galleries could have many more pieces of one item. For example, Adelaide has 21 Rodin sculptures, which I gave them, but they don't have the variety as you have here.
Remarkably well preserved for his 94 years, Dr. Bowmore this evening opened an exhibition of the donated sculptures.
I made all my money here, and I think it's time I should give it back.
Well, I consider him to be the Renaissance man of Newcastle. Bill Bowmore is a man that is very passionate about supporting the arts.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Deal.
Simply goes to show that the Greeks haven't got their act together. This is a real blow for this company, it's a real blow for employment on the coast, but it's a massive blow for the Olympic Games.
"18-year-old Kirk James Crosley of Stockton was arrested after a contingent of police chased this Holden Commodore station wagon from Waratah to Raymond Terrace. He faced Newcastle local court today on charges alleging his involvement in 3 serious incidents which happened in the space of 2.5 hours yesterday morning. The allegations include the carjacking of a Subaru WRX from 2 women at Adamstown, being a passenger in a stolen car used to ram raid a sports store at Westfield Plaza, Tuggerah, and several counts of robbery in company, including the armed robbery at the Bogas petrol station, Cardiff. Dressed in a pair of disposable police overalls, Kirk Crosley made a brief appearance before Newcastle local court charged with 6 offences, one alleging that he took a Holden Commodore yesterday morning at Raymond Terrace, which was the property of the New South Wales Police Force. There was no application for bail. The magistrate Richard Wakely formally remanded Crosley in custody, with his case to be mentioned before the court late next month. A 17-year-old Karua youth who was also arrested at Raymond Terrace appeared separately in Wyong Children's Court and was also refused bail. Meanwhile, Waratah detectives continue the manhunt for two other offenders wanted over the crime spree and have asked for public help to identify the wanted pair. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Adam Woolnough has thrown his 110-kilogram frame into opposing defensive lines this season, gaining him a place in the starting front row and no doubt helping seal a new 3-year deal.
Knights obviously happy with the way I'm going, and I'm happy that the Knights are showing faith in me. Just really happy to stay in Newcastle for another 3 years.
Originally from Taree, the 22-year-old joined the Knights development program 7 years ago, remaining a regular first grader, gaining a country origin jumper and helping Newcastle to another premiership make up the 3-year Woolnough wish list.
It's generally a very successful club. They're always in the finals and that sort of thing. And I suppose the town too, one team, one town, and can't get better than that.
Woolnough has shrugged off a shoulder injury to be fit for Saturday's match against the embattled Parramatta Eels. Kirk Gidley, Tamana Tahu, Ben Kennedy and Andrew Johns are among the players still off contract. The Knights say no further developments are expected before next week. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
We all get a bit stressed from time to time, but this is what happens to stressed out concrete. Slabs are being stressed on this test rig at the University of Newcastle to see how much force they can take before breaking. This one took 4 tonnes.
It performed very good. In this last test, actually, it exceeded our expectations. It was quite a bit stronger than we expected.
Called composite slabs, each one has an integral steel base plate, adding to its strength, eliminating the need for timber formwork during traditional concrete building construction.
These products are specifically designed for big industrial projects like big car parks, big storage areas or multi-story buildings and that sort of thing.
The company behind the technology, Blue Scope Steel, hopes to sell it in Asia, armed with the new test results from Newcastle. Paul Lobb, NBN News. Newcastle artist John Earl has the amazing ability to paint the sea and coastline with great realism. Take this view looking south from Redhead Bluff. Opening tomorrow night at the Newcastle Region Art Gallery, a retrospective of Earl's work over 22 years with the brush.
Over the years, I kind of drifted into what you call photorealism, where you rely on photography even more and, get a very, very precise, realistic result.
These originals, lent by private collectors, show off a period in Earl's life as an artist from which he says he's moved on. He'll launch his new style in August.
Quite colourful, kind of comic, kind of abstract. You'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Across the room at the gallery is Murray McKean's collection of photographs, which have captured the demolition of the Newcastle steelworks in a totally different light.
I'm not quite sure whether people realise, but the unusual shapes and colours that are on site for all those years. It was nice to uncover them.
Minor mistakes weren't enough to prevent Sharon Lane from being crowned Australia's top TAFE student in textiles, clothing and footwear. Along with 7 other finalists, the 21-year-old student underwent 24 hours of gruelling competition, designing and making garments of clothing.
In real life, if you don't finish it during class, you can take it home and finish it. So it was a big difference.
It was Rebecca Lord's computer skills that helped her secure gold and a berth at the international competition in Finland.
It's boosted my confidence a whole lot. I'm now more confident with my skills.
Meanwhile, tripping over a piece of discarded wire in front of judges may have cost beautician Sarah McGoran first place. She finished just 5 marks behind the competition winner to claim bronze.
I was shocked because I thought I'd lost a lot more marks than what I did, so I was very pleased.
Other medalists included James Hall, Harry Levick, Daniel Scarden and Jason Solomon. Colleen West, NBN News. It was an incident that threw the Tomaree Education Centre near Nelson Bay into the national spotlight for all the wrong reasons. On April 3 last year, 2 Year 11 girls were shot with a bolt from a crossbow. It passed through the body of one girl before lodging in the legs of another. A Newcastle court was told the breakup of a relationship prompted the attack, which was also fuelled by years of bullying from other school students. Throughout the trial, the court was told the teenager had no intention to kill his former girlfriend, but he did admit he wanted to scare the rest of the students at his school. In handing down his sentence this afternoon, Justice Barr concluded that because of the offender's age and circumstances surrounding the event, he's entitled to be dealt with as a child. In imposing sentences, I must therefore give more weight to the need for rehabilitation and less to retribution and deterrence. The 17-year-old has been ordered to serve a non-parole period of 5 years in a juvenile detention centre. Justice Barr also stated, "I think that he is remorseful, though I do not think that he will fully realise for a long time the consequences of what he has done." Colleen West, NBN News.
Interest rate rises and the recent state government taxes have caused the real estate climate to cool dramatically. In Newcastle, experts believe it's resulted in a more even playing field.
I think it's coming back to a fair marketplace where both vendors will get a fair price for their home and buyers will pay a fair price for that particular home.
The panic buying of the last 2 years has gone, replaced by a marketplace of buyers that are still keen but wanting to take their time. This $585,000 Merriweather home has been on the market for 3 weeks and already there's been plenty of interest. The key, keeping things reasonable.
People are, I think they're just not realising that the dreams, the bubbles burst. They've just got to start being realistic with their prices.
The same can be said for the increasing number of properties being passed in at auction.
Well, auction clearance rates in Sydney have been devastated over the last few months, and they have in Newcastle too. But once again, that's to do with probably unrealistic expectations by vendors and that there isn't as many buyers out there as there was 12 months ago.
Meanwhile, the growing trend to sell up and buy in the city seems to be continuing, with almost half of the 49 apartments in the new Hunter Street Aculon development snapped up during their first day on the market.
Since Shootout began in 1999, amateur filmmakers have once a year turned Newcastle's most recognisable landmarks into movie sets. This September, the same thing will happen across the Tasman. An entrepreneur from the city of Hamilton near Auckland has bought the franchise to run Shootout in New Zealand.
For us, it's sort of a dream come true where we've been trying to get the franchise off the ground for a couple of years now, and in 2004 we have 5 actually operating, which is phenomenal for us.
Along with the Kiwi and Hunter versions of Shootout, it will also be held in Geelong, Toowoomba and the United States. It's hoped Newcastle filmmakers will take the chance to create stories overseas.
Our franchising has actually been a wonderful way of developing cultural exchange between cities.
Films at all shootout festivals must be shot within 24 hours with only in-camera editing and run for less than 7 minutes. With New Zealand experiencing a film industry boom, it's expected the weird and wonderful will be explored at Shootout across the Tasman.
Well, Lord of the Rings, or what was the other one, Xena, all those kind of warrior things come out of New Zealand, and they've got wonderful countryside, so, lots of probably adventurous films.
Todd Nardi, NBN News. When the goalpost was all that stopped South from landing first points at the Broadmeadow International Hockey Centre, the red and black men must have thought it simply wasn't their day. But with the university constantly defending, something had to crack, and South's next attacking raid ended at the back of the net. It was a forgettable day for the students. Ill discipline handed South scoring opportunities, who eventually went on to post a 5-goal victory. Meantime, there was plenty of spice on the ice as the Newcastle North Stars met Canberra last night. Having just beaten the Sydney Bears by 1 point on Saturday, the North Stars landed 5 goals in the first term against the men from the nation's capital, 2 of them to defender Jackson Wilson. An emphatic 9-2 victory now has the Newcastle side well placed at second in the National League. And the points for sporting longevity went to the Adamstown Women's Bowling Club today. Members joined for a rousing happy birthday rendition as the club turned 70. Doing what they do best, the ladies hit the greens for a match of 2 bowl triples. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
It was the potentially fatal whooping cough which was running rampant through the region's hospitals last week. Now Hunter Health is dealing with yet another serious outbreak. This time a highly contagious gastrovirus is striking down victims and crippling hospitals. At Belmont, patients have been quarantined to contain the outbreak.
Belmont's been the most affected, and there we've had 12 patients, most of whom have come into the hospital with the illness, and we've had 2 staff members affected.
Gastroenteritis lasts 1 to 2 days. Symptoms include vomiting and diarrhoea. 7 nursing homes have also reported outbreaks where it's considered very dangerous.
It can be quite ferocious though, and so the vomiting can lead to dehydration, particularly in the elderly, and that can be life-threatening.
Doctors urge people to wash their hands carefully with soap and running water before handling food.
It can be contracted through food or contaminated food or water, but most frequently it would be coming from contaminated hands.
Hunter Health fears hospital visitors are passing on the virus to staff and patients. They're calling on all those affected by the virus to stay away from hospitals and nursing homes. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Imagine having to book a taxi days or weeks in advance, and even then sometimes missing out. Well, that's life for those with a mobility impairment in Newcastle.
The situation with the provision of wheelchair accessible taxis is pretty appalling. Virtually people that rely on them as their main form of transport really can't live a normal life in many ways.
I'm required to be at work by about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm unable to get a taxi. So I'm relying on family or friends to get me to work.
It's a frustrating situation for wheelchair-bound people with just 5 wheelchair-accessible taxis on Newcastle roads.
It's actually rated the worst in the state. Towns like Port Macquarie and Wollongong have a much higher number of wheelchair-accessible taxis.
Port Macquarie cab drivers say wheelchair-accessible taxis are in high demand and certainly are economically viable.
There's 10 wheelchair cabs and 8 normal cabs, so we have a more percentage of wheelchair cabs than normal, yeah.
But in Newcastle, which is 4 times the size of Port Macquarie, no one wants to drive them.
We've got taxis, I think there's 3 there today, doing nothing at the base, purely because they can't be manned.
And part of the problem is the stigma attached to wheelchair cabs. Drivers say the general public won't use them.
You can't afford to run a business at a loss, and that's the name of the game. You have a wheelchair cab, you run at a loss.
This is the culmination of 12 months' work and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of donations from businesses throughout the Hunter. It's the second Homes for Hope project carried out in the region, and the $100,000 raised from the sale of the properties will do far more than boost a few piggy banks.
The money we raised will be staying here in Newcastle for support our youth programs. Some of those are Best Options youth mentoring and our drug and alcohol counselling and things like that.
Without community donations, Mr Lewis says it would be impossible for Newcastle City Mission to continue its valuable work with students who are in need of guidance. 60 businesses and corporations have helped with construction of the Maryland houses, as well as supplying materials, garden plants and putting the final touches that make each house unique.
It's amazing how all the people come together, and as you see the houses, you know, how it all comes together, and then at the end of it support us so we can continue to offer those services here locally.
Colleen West, NBN News.
What you say? Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. Now, baby, listen, baby, don't you treat me this away, 'cause I'll be back on my feet someday. Don't care if you do, cause it's understood. You ain't got no money, you just ain't no good. Well, I guess if you say so, I'll have to pack my things and go. That's right, hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. What you say? I hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. Well, don't you come back no more. What you said? Don't you come back no more. I didn't understand. Don't you come back no more. You can't mean that. And don't you come back no more. Oh, now, baby, please. Don't you come back no more. What you trying to do to me? Don't you come back no more. What you say? Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. Now, baby, listen, baby, don't you treat me this away, cause I'll be back on my feet someday. Don't care if you do, cause it's understood. You ain't got no money, you just ain't no good. Well, I guess if you say so, I'll have to pack my things and go. That's right.
Music has always been like my breathing. How do you do without breathing? You can't do without breathing. I can't do without music. You know, it's truly my life.
What you say? Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. Well, don't you come back no more. What you said? Don't you come back no more. I didn't understand. Don't you come back no more. You can't mean that. And don't you come back no more. Oh, now, baby, please. Don't you come back no more. What you trying to do to me? Don't you come back no more.
If you're drink driving or speeding in the Hunter this long weekend, chances are you'll get caught. All available Lower Hunter police, including highway patrol and general duties, will be roving the streets and highways, in particular focusing on the Pacific Highway, New England Highway and Nelson Bay Road.
The Lower Hunter Highway Patrol will be targeting speeding mainly, also drink driving, which is still a major problem in our area. Other things will be seat belts, and also driver fatigue, which is a factor in a lot of accidents.
And with the rain falling for the last 2 days, there's the added concern of slippery, dangerous roads.
Basically at the moment where we've had a long dry period, you have a rain on the road and you get a lot of oil, grease comes back up through the bitumen, which makes the roads very slippery. So if people can be mindful of that and slow down for the conditions.
And the record for the last 24 hours in the Hunter isn't looking good, with 2 accidents early this morning in the wet on the Pacific Highway. Double demerit points came into force last night and will continue until midnight Monday. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Well, the Gold Coast has stepped up its intensity on the quest to be the next team accepted into the NRL. Last night on the Footy Show, they announced that they will be called the Gold Coast Dolphins, as well as they launched their new logo and jumpers, while John Cartwright got the nod as the new head coach. Now, just like the Central Coast, they have some major financial backers. Geographically, it's the right place. The population is dead set exploding. But the biggest challenge that both bids face isn't whether there's enough elite players to make a quality competitive team. An adjustment to their salary cap, I believe, will fix that problem. The real challenge is to convince the existing clubs to actually vote for another team. Now, most of the NRL clubs are in a tight financial situation, and with the prospect of their funding being diluted from the NRL with every franchise that is included. Now, the bottom line that most clubs won't jeopardise themselves for the sake of expanding the game. On to Origin 2, and with both camps working hard without any turmoil, it's great to see Freddie Fittler, Brett Kamali and Darren Lockyer back into the Origin arena. These three heavyweights give some genuine experience back to the spectacle, and particularly Freddie's attempt to finish his Origin career on a winning note. On to round 14, I'm going for the Knights, the Eels over the Sea Eagles, Panthers, Storm, the Raiders to beat the Sharks and the Warriors to win in Christchurch. Good luck with your tips. I'll see you all next week.
Tight, fast tracks are what top mountain bikers look for. And they found it for round 3 of the Working Week Mountain Bike Series. For some riders, though, the 12-kilometre track at Killingworth was simply too treacherous. The inaugural Working Week Series has gained its name thanks to a format of 5 separate races across the country, each going for exactly 8 hours.
I mean, this is the way that mountain biking is heading. Mountain biking is heading towards endurance events.
It may not look as extreme as downhill, but riders in the solo division spent 8 hours straight in the saddle today, and that's certainly pushing the limits. Todd Nardi, NBN News. Rock-solid Lakes United defence drove the Macquarie Scorpions players out of play and brought one unsuspecting linesman right into the middle of the action. With the ball in hand, Lakes United proved why it's on top of the table. Second rower Glenn Agland putting his side 22 points in front early in the second half. The Scorpions mounted a daring comeback but couldn't pull it off, Lakes winning 44-36. Meantime, in the NBN State Soccer League, the Lake Macquarie Roosters proved the underdog should never be underestimated. A great strike by Ben Murrell produced the first of his team's 3 goals. Despite squandering a number of opportunities, premiers and competition leaders, the Edgeworth Eagles, fought back from a 2-goal deficit to finish the match in a 3-3 draw. Today's other game saw the Western Workers outclass Cessnock. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
With more than 40% of first marriages ending badly, it's often the man who is ill-equipped emotionally to deal with the breakup.
The most obvious things are alcohol abuse, adjustment difficulties. They might miss a period off work. More seriously, they can experience an episode of depression.
This book, New Maps for Broken-Hearted Men, is available free of charge from Hunter Health. Psychologist Trevor Waring says many men are stuck in an emotional cave.
We certainly are to a large extent, and the way in which we cope with our emotions are not always productive. We either push it down, or we try and drink it, or we take something, or we just try and deny it, and all of those things end up costing us as far as both our physical and psychological health is concerned.
These workers from the honeysuckle redevelopment are the face of the latest campaign. It's hoped the new book will help men work through their emotions.
At last, men feel they can say how they're feeling. They don't necessarily have to break down, but they can say how they're feeling, and if they're hurting and if they're agonising over a loss, then they can at least talk about it.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
According to police, this car, mangled and crushed almost beyond recognition, is the result of speed. The driver, a Gosford man, remains in a serious condition after hitting a power pole on the Central Coast last night. Police say the 560 Hunter drivers caught speeding are the lucky ones. Stopped in their tracks before their lead foot could put their own lives and others at risk.
It is concerning and a little disappointing. The public should be aware that the police will be out in force over the last long weekend, and people still do tend to speed.
There were some suggestions that there were more police on patrol this year and that they'd been positioned where drivers weren't expecting them. Police say that's incorrect.
Police know where people speed, it's simple as that, and police will work those areas.
But there is one redeeming factor: drink driving figures are well and truly down on last year. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Andrew Wilkie lost his job standing for what he believes. The former employee of a top intelligence filtering agency, the Office of National Assessment, made headlines for citing doubts about the information used to justify the war in Iraq.
The dishonesty that brought us this war, this unjustified and illegal war, is just too serious, and the consequences are just too serious for us to just ignore it and walk away.
Despite losing his job in the public service, Wilkie's diary has been filled with speaking commitments, including a Politics at the Pub forum last night in Hamilton. The Greens candidate, who will stand against John Howard in the upcoming federal election, is about to launch a book that gives revealing accounts of Australia's intelligence operations.
For us, being part of the invasion of a sovereign state without international endorsement, for a set of official reasons, every one of which has now been totally discredited. We can't just walk away and forgive people who have done this.
The book, Axis of Deceit, has been given the once-over by the federal government, and minor changes have since been made.
I think make people even more suspicious of the government if it tried to ban the book.
Colleen West, NBN News. They've spent several years dancing to the tunes of the Wiggles, but in just a few months, these four mums will be grooving to the sound of car engines. There will be no coffee shops where they're going. In fact, they'll be lucky to find any shops at all. Even a toilet and shower will be a luxury. Kirsty Spiteri, Monica Kerr, Valda Johnston and Kylie Nugent will jump aboard their soon-to-be hotted-up 1981 Ford wagon for the annual Wangaratta to Coolangatta car rally.
But it's not something that sort of comes along very often, so it was just a fun thing to do, and it'll be interesting, and it's also for a good cause.
Just getting out of the norm, your life, and meeting other people that will be on the rally.
The group has already raised $17,000 for Cystic Fibrosis Australia, but will need a whole lot more if they're to secure pole position for the September 9 start. One thing is for certain, these coloured-coded wigglettes will be hard to miss in their big red car, which will be fitted with all-important air conditioning. That's about as far as the luxury goes though, with swags for accommodation and dust and mud a certainty.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a break from home, but I'm sure we'll all miss our children.
Colleen West, NBN News.
Yet another hurdle for the developers of the largest industrial estate in New South Wales proposed for Kurri Kurri. Despite approval by Cessnock Council and the state government, an inquiry is underway, partly to check if adequate environmental assessment has been carried out. But the proponents say they're confident of a positive outcome with the backing of locals.
Hunter Valley Research Foundation did a survey late last year that showed around 74% of people either agree or strongly agree with the Hunter Economic Zone project.
But one residents group has recommended scaling down the estate from 900 hectares to 200. They say they're not against job creation or development, but believe the site is inappropriate.
Well, this particular site has 31 threatened species, which is more than any other site apart from the Barrington Tops. Some of those are extremely endangered.
And with the closure of BHP, Pasminco and other major companies in the Hunter Valley, the local Chamber of Commerce says the area is in need of more jobs. The Chamber says the unemployment rate for Kurri youth stands at 30%. The industrial estate could provide more than 10,000 positions. The Upper House Committee will present its findings to the Minister for Planning. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. As Australia's population rises and urban sprawl eats up our countryside, farmland is under siege.
Well, in the next 20 years, the Hunter and the Central Coast are expecting to grow by about another 200,000 people. That'll mean that between the Hawkesbury River and Port Stephens, we'll have a city the size of Adelaide, over 1 million people living here.
And that's bad news for farmers. They say rich, fertile agricultural land is at risk of becoming a threatened species. The predators, developers on the hunt for land to turn into estates, and people seeking a rural lifestyle setting up smaller and less productive farms. A forum was held at Tokal today in the hope of finding solutions.
What we have to do is make sure that urban areas are very well planned, that they're consolidated, that the resources are there, that the densities are higher, that people are actually contained in high quality urban places, so that we don't end up with just seemingly mindless sprawl into farming areas.
And with land prices on the rise, farmers saying it's difficult to turn down the big bucks to subdivide or sell up.
Our biggest concern is that over time, if appropriate planning considerations aren't undertaken, that agriculture, productive agriculture that is grossly under threat.
Should I complete my HSC, go to university, travel or find a job? They're questions many teenagers struggle to answer, but Tomaree High School is helping to take the pain out of decision making. A program being run at the school aims to combat youth unemployment by putting Year 10 students in touch with local businesses and giving them a taste of working life.
Start them thinking about their life after school, to look beyond this immediate area.
Regular workshops are also held, giving pupils a chance to discuss their future with school staff and local employers.
It's made me realise that I do want to go on to university and further study.
Year 11 student Nathan Trenery is now studying, working as a trainee chef at Nelson Bay, as well as passing on skills to his peers.
Because it's really what I want to do, and it just plays part with school, and then it's a full-time, part-time job, and then it just continues on from that, so it's a lot of fun.
The Joint Council and State Government funded program goes far beyond the school gate, providing ongoing moral support for early school leavers. Colleen West, NBN News. It was an emotional end to a turbulent and tough journey for these RAAF personnel who have just completed the highest level of combat pilot training available in the country. The unmistakable thunder of FA-18 Hornets today fell on Williamtown, marking the end of a fighter combat instructor course that's held only once every 2 years. The pilots have trained 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for the past 5 months, learning about weapons and war tactics, as well as clocking up 80 hours of flying time. They've just returned from a month in the Northern Territory, where they took part in a simulated war operation.
We actually deliberately try and make it stressful for them, make them perform under stress to simulate some sort of combat type environment.
The pilots will become instructors for the RAAF, as well as developing fighter tactics that may one day be used by the Australian Defence Force in Australia and abroad. Colleen West, NBN News.
Fire crews arrived at the school just after 9:30 this morning to find flames devouring the top floor of a classroom block.
Then seen flames coming out of the main block, A block over there, and then you're seeing fire brigade just come out. It's just people everywhere.
Dozens of firefighters attacked the blaze from the outside. Some ventured into the smoky classrooms, while others used aerial appliances to fight the flames from above. Buffeting winds caused the blaze to spread rapidly along the roof cavity. However, crews managed to contain the fire to the top floor of the building.
Well, we managed to get a cut-off point at the halfway point of the building and drive the fire back onto itself from there.
It took 60 fire personnel around 2 hours to bring the blaze under control, but by that stage 15 classrooms and some staff facilities had already been destroyed.
Well, there's fairly extensive fire damage along the top floor due to the spread through the ceiling void. The lower floor will have some water damage.
Arrangements to put 15 demountable classrooms on the school's oval have begun. Fire investigation are yet to determine the cause of the blaze.
And he doesn't grasp every concept of the game because he hasn't played it, but there's an analytical mind there that wants to know more, and just probing questions about angles and options and things like that. Andrew is certainly a impressive individual, not only for his his football ability, but I think just the way about he thinks about the game, and clearly he follows rugby and he's got a good understanding.
In 2002, we were introduced to the new bot, a robotic dog program to play soccer. 2 years on, and while the sport may not have changed, the way in which the game is played has advanced in leaps and bounds.
They're 2 to 3 times faster in terms of just the speed that they move at, and the computers in these are much faster. They're at least 3 times quicker than the computers at that stage.
These dogs can kick goals and save them. The goalie's even programmed not to leave the box, skills which they'll need at RoboCup 2004, an international robot soccer competition, and one which demands a strict training regime.
The robots actually do laps, and these laps are part of a learning algorithm where they move a certain distance and they time how quickly it takes them. And then
there's a built-in digital camera in the new bot's head, making way for other robotic projects using similar technology. The dogs are also being sold as appealing companions, especially given they don't eat or need cleaning up after.
Yeah, they're used to play with children, so they can play games, they can show some exercises and do some gymnastics, and the children can imitate them.
But at $2,000 each, that's one expensive pooch. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.